And now that you see it as a prompt, well, hey there, welcome back. So what prompted you to listen to this episode? Get it? Oh, not yet? Well, you will. I've done at least 2 episodes on AI, the dangers of using, and so forth. AI is ubiquitous with business now. Everyone's using it in some form or another, and why wouldn't they when it's pretty much shoved down your throat in every piece of software you use, whether it's Gmail or even drawing software, scheduling software. New companies are crawling out of the woodwork practically daily saying what they do is AI powered. I have a unique, very unbalanced way of using it. What I do use it for is sort of a language processing model. I have it take the raw transcript from these podcast episodes and then convert it into something that's a bit more readable, but with the explicit instructions to never change a word or a syllable, regardless of how wrong it thinks the sentence is, because that's what a transcript is. If I mess up, then I should mess up in the text as well. What I don't use it for is anything creative. I will never ask it for an idea. I will never ask it to give me a quick list of things that have to do with something else, because I need to be able to do that or I don't understand my subject. Do I ask for clarification? Sure. Do I ask for research? Sometimes. But mostly it's a lot of mundane, tedious things that would really take a tremendous amount of time and be a complete waste of time. I have learned through online use and local use quite a bit. And when I say local use, I spun up, as they say, a copy of a local language model directly on my office computer. This was a while back, and it took a lot of steps. Recently, I did it in just a few steps with an even larger model. It's so large and so taxing on my system that when I make requests of it, I have to literally watch the temperature to make sure I don't go over a certain point. And my computer's smart enough to know to shut down or to spin down the CPU, but it's barely running within the parameters that it can run within. That being said, I want to talk to you about prompting, but not just prompting for LLMs, but prompting for humans, because there's a lot in common here. When you first heard the word prompting, it probably didn't mean a lot to you. It didn't trigger much, unless you're someone who is in writers groups or something where you do writers prompts and things like that. But otherwise, you probably wondered what prompting was, and it really never stuck in your brain. And because it never stuck in your brain, it's probably not something you've developed as a skill. Prompting is just a set of parameters you give the model you're talking to before you really get into the conversation, and it really is a must. Now, all models have built-in prompts. They're all basically engineered to be cheerleaders for you, to be very cheerful, to be overly agreeable, and to be overly cautious. With a beginning prompt, you can get the AI to interact with you in a way that's a little bit more favorable to what you want to get done. And what you have to do is think of it as a per session kind of arrangement with it. It's not going to be your best buddy forever, and it only has so much memory. It has something called a context window in which it can fit in the stuff you're talking about. And it's sort of first in, first out when it comes to what it forgets. So it's going to have some amnesia on the things that you talked about a while back. If you switch gears a lot, it'll also make it difficult for it to understand what you're trying to work on. So that's where the prompt comes in. You can say act as a professional person doing something. You are an attorney, and there's an asterisk there. You're a this, you're a that, or you're a development partner helping me do this. If you pick something like attorney or doctor, what have you, it's always going to give you a disclaimer that it isn't, and so on and so forth. And it's going to always give you that disclaimer. If you want it to help you in marketing, then you say act as a marketing professional and do this or that. But you're going to quickly run into basically the same things, because you're not going to get any new exciting ideas out of it unless you give it new and exciting ideas to work with. And that's the simplest reason to not rely on it to be creative. And unfortunately, why we see so many posts on LinkedIn and other places where they all look the same, and you can instantly tell that it was created by AI. Even if it wasn't directly created by AI, you can tell that the bullet lists are something that AI came up with. So back to the prompt. There's also something called a super prompt, and that is a really long prompt that you give the AI at the very beginning. You can literally cut and paste these things if you search for them, which will give you what they say are sometimes superpowers. Sometimes you can get around the guardrails and get it to tell you things that are a little bit more interesting, a little bit more helpful, and maybe a little bit more dangerous, at least in its perception. You can, of course, and should continue prompting as you're using it. It's not a set it and forget it, because you can adjust its behavior accordingly. And that's actually how these models are created. They're with human reinforcement, but unfortunately, this human reinforcement carries a lot of bias. So you sometimes have to undo some of that bias just to get it to give you the responses you need to do your job or the project or whatever it is you're working on. If you've really never had this sort of way of approaching AI, you will be shocked to see the difference in the responses and the difference in how useful it becomes to you if you truly set parameters for it. It's an interesting exercise in being bossy. Well, it'll feel like you're being bossy, but you're not. What you're actually doing is saying, here's the groundwork. Here's how I want to work with you. Here's how I'd like you to create and craft your responses, and the attitude and the persona that I sort of need you to do to fill this. Wait a second. This is sounding like something else, isn't it? What a nice segue. Well, thank you. So this is why I say that prompting also applies to humans. Think about that. You meet someone for the first time and you can chat with them, and both people are going to go from sort of a place of neutrality, right? What do you do? What is this? What is that? And so forth. If you work with someone, they're going to get onboarded. You're going to talk about the mission statement and lots of other things that may or may not be a reality in your company. You have a certain persona for the company, a certain way to dress, the way meetings are conducted, the way that people talk to their bosses. Is it a fun environment? Is it a corporate environment? Is it both, which isn't a real thing? And so forth. So there are all these visual and audio cues and environmental cues for people to be prompted. And the only time you get prompted properly, efficiently, is either A, when you do something wrong. Oh, we don't do that here, Sarah. Or B, when someone there takes you aside. It's typically someone of your level who says, hey, I got to tell you, this is how things really are this way. When you deal with Ralph, do this. They really like this kind of thing here. They kind of look down on that. That's prompting. You're being prompted. If we're always prompting each other and in many ways, why not do it on purpose then? Why not consider that? And you're going to say, well, it kind of sounds like how I talk to my kids sometimes. Well, yeah, there's a lot of parallel between how you interact with your children and how you interact with other people. We just feel we feel on our shoulders the need, the ability, and the responsibility to get it right with our kids, especially when they're little. When we're dealing with adults, we make all sorts of assumptions that we sometimes get burned for. But what I'm saying is, consider the whole concept of prompting, but applied to humans. My challenge to you would be, first of all, listen to my advice about prompting an AI. And if you say, well, I don't work with an AI, well, we'll skip ahead. But if you do work with AIs in your job and in some way, shape, or form, and you're freely allowed to interact with them in the sort of chat interface, then apply what I'm saying about prompting. And after you do that for a bit, you're going to start to see the similarities between that and maybe some of the discussion you have with the actual breathing human beings. So my challenge to you would be to then apply that to humans that you deal with. And let me address something that's going to happen. You're going to feel bossy. You're going to feel like you're trying to control the situation. You're going to be afraid that someone is going to consider yourself to be controlling, to be someone who is not open to new opinions, and so forth. you're going to think, and you might be right in some cases, that someone's going to say, well, don't tell me how to talk. And I will submit to you that all we're ever doing is telling people to talk, how to, because you'll be told, hey, you need to get your 30-second elevator speech in. Wait, what? I have 30 seconds to express myself? Yes. That's not hard-hitting enough. You need to apply to features and benefits. Don't tell them about this. Client communication is constantly being manipulated exactly like someone is prompting you. And now that you see it as a prompt, now you can use it to your benefit. So, as always, hey, this is going to sound like a prompt. I've been prompting you at the end of these every single time. So, I appreciate you listening. If you like what you heard and you have fun with it, please provide some feedback for me. That's another prompt. And if you know someone who would benefit from this, by all means, forward this to them. Whether you're listening on Spotify or iTunes or you're getting the email, please forward it to them and say, hey, I think you might enjoy this. So thank you as always. You're important to me, and take care.
Living life every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days.
Thank you for listening. As always, go to markbradford.org to see all my author-related things. Go to Alchemy for Life to see coaching, speaking, writing, and this podcast. And go to Alchemy for Me to get a copy of Checkmark.